It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Monte Schulz. Hi, Monte. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Morning from Hawaii.
You're in Hawaii? Oh, okay. It's a little.
Yeah, I'm on Oahu.
A little early there in the morning, yeah.
Yeah, not too bad, but it's been. I've done interviews a little earlier than this. I did one at 2:30 a.m.
Well, I don't know. 2:30 would be. Did you go to sleep or did you just stay up and do that one?
No, I thought about staying up, but I went to sleep and set my alarm for like 10 after 2, and then make sure I was up and a little fresh, and then I didn't get back to sleep till about 4 afterwards.
Oh, I see.
It kind of killed my day.
Do you live there?
Okay.
Do you live in Hawaii?
Part of the year. The other part, I live in Santa Barbara, California.
Oh, okay.
One of the interviews, the guy thought I was in Santa Barbara. When I said, he goes, "So you're in Santa Barbara, right?" I said, "No, Oahu." He goes, "Oh." So it was a 6 a.m. interview. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on the show. Happy to have you here. You've got a book called Metropolis, which we'll be talking about in a minute. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, if you don't mind, and then we'll pivot over to your book. The first one is, did you grow up like as a normal kid, or were you kind of like a Hollywood kid because you had a very famous father?
A normal kid, because Dad was not famous when I was a kid. He didn't become really famous till I was a teenager.
Oh, okay. All right.
And even then, in Sonoma County, where I grew up in Northern California, there was no sense of Dad being a celebrity. Even through high school, there was no sense of it at all. He was known in the county, but not as a super famous person. So I have to answer by saying there was never a sense of being, a Hollywood kid. His fame was not really like that. So, and people had known him too in the county, just a regular person going to the Western Auto store and coaching baseball and, just being a regular person, playing in the bowling league and those kinds of things. So, no, it's just a normal childhood as far as that goes.
I guess because he was famous for something that wasn't connected with his face. In other words, he wasn't a movie star or a TV star that people saw every day, right? They knew his work.
Okay, so what it was is in Sonoma County, they knew him, but unless they read the newspapers and read the comic strips, they wouldn't necessarily know what he did. And comic strip fame wasn't at that time like being on TV or something, being a sports star or a movie star or that sort of thing. He didn't really become famous in the popular culture until 3 things happened. That little Happiness is a Warm Puppy book that came out by Determined Productions. And then after that, I think it would be the You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown's musical, and then hitting the big time with Charlie Brown Christmas. But that, I think, was like 1965 or something. So I was like 13 at that point. And then after that, he became more well-known in the popular culture. But in Sonoma County, at that point, he was already known just for being, Charles Schulz and being a member of the community. So they knew him, but they didn't know him as a super famous person until, say, later on. Then they recognized that he was very famous. But not at all when we grew up. We just grew up outside of a small town called Sebastopol in Northern California. So just a regular life.
All right. Did he work from home?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So he did all the drawing at home. Yeah.
Yeah. Just, as I said, normal life. He worked 9 to 4, 5 days a week. Didn't work at night. Didn't work on the weekends.
I did read something in his bio that said that he never took a vacation until 1997. Is that true?
No, that's not true.
Okay.
You read his biography?
Yeah, I was on Wikipedia.
Oh, what, the bio on that? Yeah, no, not the biography. No, that's not true, because what he would do is he would, I guess it depends how you define vacation, but he went to Wimbledon. I flew over with him in 1977 and went again, I believe, in 83. When we were younger, went to Pebble Beach. He played in the Bing Crosby Pro-Am. What he would do is he would try to work a month or two ahead so that he could take time off like that and not be, behind the schedule. But I don't know. I mean, I hear a lot of stories about Dad that are kind of silly, to be honest. Like, what? Where did you get that information? I don't know. It's amazing. In fact, in his biography, David Michaelis wrote that Charles Schulz was a driven artist and was cold and distant from his children, didn't have time for them. That was completely false. Dad took me to baseball games all the time down to Candlestick Park in San Francisco. He took me to see the sixth game of the 1962 World Series, Yankees versus Giants. We would go down, get up in the morning, and go down for a doubleheader. So this is from the father who didn't pay any attention to his children, right? I mean, it was so preposterous. I don't know why he would write that, because David Michaelis knew that wasn't true. We spent 6 years talking to him, and then he wrote all this stuff in his book that was completely false. Our suspicion is that HarperCollins told him to write that, to make sort of something out of a little bit more dramatic, something melodramatic.
Yeah, they wanted to make it a little more juicy. Maybe there wasn't something. Yeah.
Right, and then we had to hear people telling us. Somebody wrote online that the Schulz children obviously didn't know they had a terrible childhood. Well, so what? How can you even say something? Where would that even come? That's so ridiculous. Wow. But yeah, so because we said, no, we had a great childhood. Oh, you obviously didn't know that you had a terrible childhood. You thought it was good, but it wasn't. Okay, thank you.
So he didn't make you dress as Charlie Brown and go to school, right? He didn't do stuff like that. No.
None of that. No. That was just that. So what Dad did, that was his job. That was his job, and he worked. But we could come in and talk to him during the day. He'd come in sometime. He always had a few minutes for us. We knew we had to let him get back to work, but he was also very gregarious and funny, and we would all say we had a fabulous childhood and we had a great dad. He was always there, available for us, and we engaged. I played catch with him all the time outside. We played hockey in the basement, and played tennis and paddleball on our tennis court, and it just seemed like a super fun childhood. A great dad, very, very engaged, and very engaged with our lives. It was fun.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, because after reading, One Too Many Mommy Dearest kind of stories about famous, it's nice to hear just that we had a normal childhood, and so that's great.
Yeah, we had a very fun childhood. It was really great. It was really great. He drove us into school, drove us into town for haircuts on Saturday mornings. There we are in the barbershop, because his dad was a barber. So, it was just, I don't know, it's the only thing to say. We had a normal, fun childhood. It was great. Anything else you hear is just untrue, completely untrue.
On your bio, it says that your first published novel was called Down by the River in 1990. And then it says you spent the next 12 years writing a novel about the jazz age. I did want to ask you one question about that, and then we'll pivot over to Metropolis. The Charlie Brown Christmas has all that wonderful Vince Guaraldi piano music, which I actually have the soundtrack. I play it around Christmas time. It's just wonderful stuff. I'm a big fan. Did your father pick that? I mean, did he know Vince Guaraldi, or was that picked by the producers of the cartoon?
Probably, I think he might have known of Vince Guaraldi's work, but it was all very sort of synchronistic between the producers and my dad. The producer was Lee Mendelson, and I think he knew Vince Guaraldi from the Bay Area. I don't remember how that all happened, but Vince, I think the song was Catch the Wind or something like that. I just don't remember it was a very famous song he wrote, and so they got him to do the music, and he did that famous Linus and Lucy song. And so the music fit very well. Dad, I guess, really liked it. I mean, my book is set in the 20s. I call it the Jazz Age. It's simpler than saying in the 20s. It's not about the music at the time, but I mean, I've obviously mentions of it a bunch, but that's not really what the book is about. But But no, I think I'm sure they had conversations about it. And Dad knew Vince Guaraldi. I mean, everybody in connected with Charlie Brown Christmas now is dead, but Vince Guaraldi was the first one to die. And then I think as my dad died next, and then Bill Melendez, the animator, died, and Lee Mendelson died on Christmas Day about 2-3 years ago. I just talked to him a few months before, so he was, and that was it. He was the whole creative team for that show is gone now. And it seems like a long time ago for me, because obviously I was like 13, 14 years old at the time that it came out.
Well, Vince Guaraldi died really young. I mean, he was only 40-something anyways. He just, sad story about him, but great piano player. I was a big fan of his work.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep.
Okay, so
Exactly.
your book is called Metropolis, and this came out in August? Like it just came out, yeah?
What, the last week or something like that? Yeah.
Okay, give us a
Tuesday.
little synopsis of the book.
So, the Metropolis is about it's about a republic, a fictional republic that has given itself over to eugenics, negative eugenics, which means eugenics is a word invented by a guy named Francis Galton, a Brit in the 19th century, meaning well-born. And the idea was to improve society by mating the best people and developing the best people and raising the level of intellect and culture. When eugenics came west to the United States, we, in our often inimitable way, decided that another take on this would be to get rid of the worst people you don't like. And in my book, what's happened is a society that feels itself put upon by the feeble-minded, the infirm, the sociopathic, the degenerate, decided to get rid of them. And the excuse was they came up with this idea that there was this bug, a virus or bug called spiriosis, and it's in the blood. And so they ran people through these big testing zones, and everyone they identified as spiriosis, they emptied 3 districts of this big metropolis, put them on a train, sent them out to the hinterlands, and hoped they'd all die. So then 40 years later, the republic decides they want that land back because they're still having problems in their society. It's still not functioning like they want. So they start a war with the people in the survivors of the Great Separation, is what I call it, and start a war that's been going on for 60 years. My character, Julian Brehm, is a college senior at Regency College, living in Thayer Hall, and studying law and philosophy, and he is born into this world. So he's a college senior. He has a roommate named Freddie Barron, who's a brilliant but poor student, very good at puzzles, and an alcoholic. And Julian meets a 27-year-old sort of bohemian revolutionary named Nina Rinaldi with an 8-year-old sister. And he falls in love with her and gets drawn into the mysteries of this metropolis, this republic, this eugenics crusade, which he's known since his whole life. It's about eugenics, and she tells him, you and all your friends live in a flimsy soap bubble. You don't know what's really going on in the world. And he says, hey, I get it. I don't. He says, I can't even spell victory anymore. So this book could be about just a college senior falling in love with a bohemian revolutionary. I was thinking about this last night. Could be about that, just that. And it could be about sort of the mystery of what's going on in the society. But I wanted to set a love story, which it is, against the backdrop of a huge war, which is what's happening in this area called the Desolation, where the war is taking place. Millions and millions of people have died over the past, say, 60 years. And that's what the book is about. Julian trying to understand the mystery of all of this. So the book's a mystery, it's an adventure, it's philosophical, and it's a love story.
Does it have a dystopian kind of feel to it?
It would be, I was trying to decide how you would name this. I guess it's dystopian in that the society is just not working. It doesn't have, the government is not totalitarian like in 1984 or Brave New World. It's just running. In fact, there is no singular head of the government. There's what they call the status imperium, which has 5 members, anonymous even to each other, who make the final decisions about politics and but it also has below that what I call the Judicial Council, what Nina Rinaldi calls the Judas Council. She says betraying the ideals of the Republic. They do all the debate and so they're all sound like intellectuals. There are many are doctors in both philosophy and medicine and science, and they just run this society. And there's free speech in the society to a certain extent, but there is the internal security and the medical directorate and the security people, sort of, because they're in the middle of a war too. So it is dystopian in that it's not working the way it should have and has. And also underneath the city streets is what I call the undercity, which would be the caverns and catacombs of, say, Paris. This book, it would be set in France. It's not France because, as a friend of mine who I told the story to said, it's like history bifurcated 1,500 years ago, and we end up with this. So the Republic would be France geographically, right? The eastern, then these hinterlands of the east, the eastern provinces would be Germany, Eastern Europe, and then ultimately in Russia, but they're not because history is different in this book. So this Republic seems like us, not America, but Europe, seems like us, but is not us. It's very similar, but not us. And so again, history is just different. Okay. So that's kind of what Metropolis is.
All right. On your bio, it says that you walked away from writing this for 15 years. So it took you 15 years to get this book done?
No, I was writing it. I saw files. I didn't know I'd started so long ago. A saved file, which we see on the computer, was from 2003. And the problem, I couldn't figure out how my character Julian could be studying the Greeks and the Romans in a fictional republic. Likewise, I couldn't ever really get a grasp on the geography, like where is this place in regards to the Greeks, to Greece and Italy, and there's a mention of James Joyce of Finnegan's Wake in the book too. So how can he study that? And I never could figure that out, so I just gave it up. And then I was in the process of publishing the various parts of it, and then the whole of my 20s novel, Crossing Eden. And then in the spring of 2019, it came to me, following Ray Bradbury's dictum that how can this happen? Because I say it so. I realized that he's studying the Greeks and Romans because I say it so, because he is, because this republic they do. And then I understood. Then I realized I realized the whole book has to be set in what we know as France. And then the book made sense to me. But I didn't go back to it still until I came over to Hawaii in 2019, and then August 2019, I picked the book up just where I'd stopped 16 years before, after a scene where he'd had dinner at a diner with his father, Julian, and then I wrote the entire rest of the book in 9 months with a writing schedule. It was interesting. I made myself write at least one page every morning for 9 months. Only missed 3 mornings for 9 months. Before I had something to drink or eat. So I told myself, that's the schedule. You have to write at least one page. And then I could write, anything else, 2, 3, 4 pages, whatever. I did. Kept the schedule up and got it done in late April of 2020, right as sort of in the first 2 months of the pandemic quarantine.
Well, so this words of wisdom from your father, where it says only amateurs get writer's block, professionals can't afford it. I think that's a great line, but you force yourself to write one page every day. How did you overcome that if you didn't have an idea? Would you just sit there and wait until something came on?
No, I just wrote. I didn't wait for anything to come on. I just wrote the page, and as a creative anomaly for me in my entire writing life, I never had any problem having any ideas. It was the strangest thing. It was though the muses were whispering in my ear for 9 months. Everything was easy. And I literally had no outline, no plan at all. I'd had those first 50 pages I'd written in 2003, and I had some scattered little notes, a little paragraph here, a little paragraph there, actually 2 different paragraphs, and 3 actually. And then I just made it up. I made it up as I wrote it. It was the strangest thing. Nothing was hard about it. And when I read it now, it's sort of astonishing to me that I did it. I even wasn't even going to write another book. I finished my last book 6 years before, and I was writing music, and I didn't want to sit in front of a computer anymore. And then I wrote Metropolis, and literally one afternoon I was sitting in my house in Santa Barbara. I thought, hey, I just wrote another book. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you did. Wow. Okay, well, that's interesting. So I had the book, and I really like it. It's fun to read. I like it better now than when I wrote it. I understand it better now. But it was all easy. It didn't require a lot of editing. It just didn't. All I did was cut some stuff, and that was it. Proofing was a problem because there are a lot of proofing errors because I wrote the thing so fast. But still, no problem at all. I don't believe in writer's block. Really, I don't. I think people. My take on it is that people who say they're blocked are one of two things: either they're lazy or they are afraid to write something bad, which I think is the predominant mood about that. I think the best thing is to just write something. Write a page. Write a page of something. If it's horrible, you're going to find something good in it, maybe one sentence, maybe an idea, and just move it on.
I think that's good advice. Yeah. All right. Well, Monte, we got to wind this down. Thanks so much for coming on. Last question, I'll let you go. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yeah, the website for Metropolis. Okay, first of all, there is MonteSchulzAuthor.com that has stuff about my other books. There's a website called Seraphonium.com, which shows the music. And then for Metropolis is a really super great website. It's called MetropolisTheBook.com. It's really the best of the websites. It's really fantastic. It even has a slideshow of the book. If you go on, you can kind of see the book. We found images that would fit certain parts of the book, and I have clips from the text of the novel in there. You can kind of skim through it. You can actually skim through the whole book by images in like 10 minutes. And it's got lists of items and things I've invented in the book and little portraits of some of the characters. So it's really a super fun website. MetropolisTheBook.com.
Okay.
It's, you should see. Yeah, it's fun.
All right, great. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, for getting up early and from Hawaii and coming on to talk to us. It was nice talking with you, and best of luck with everything you're doing, all your projects.
Thank you. Good luck with your music.
Thank you.